And we have to be more comfortable in sharing our story and sharing our truth. Because even when I read what you had wrote back to me, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that she went through all of that. So even you taking the time to be here today, it's just like you see that. And I know if I go through something similar, I can make it through that. And a lot of times, if we're so like bent on not sharing our stories, then who gets healed? Welcome to the Heart Helper Podcast, a spiritual space where we share extraordinary stories from everyday, ordinary people because we truly believe that inspiration is far greater than influence. Hi, guys. Welcome to the Heart Helper Podcast. I am Jody Shannon. We are on episode 49. We have come a long way, but as always, you know that we are spreading love, we're spreading light, we are spreading positivity, and we are sharing very, very insightful and inspiring stories. And today I have a very special guest. I actually met this woman at a networking event, and however God saw fit, we've just connected. We've been staying in contact. We've been communicating. And when I met her, one thing I loved about her is she was just so busy pouring into so many other people. And I always say, I know we live in a generation where everyone wants the focus to be on themselves and me, this is what I'm doing. But she is constantly giving and loving up on people. I know I spoke a few episodes back about an event called Day of a Lady, in which I received an award for being a trailblazer. And the event that I attended was put on by her. And I always say this whenever I see her. For one, thank you for seeing me, for honoring me as a trailblazer, but also just thank you for seeing people. There were so many other women there, so many other entrepreneurs, just women just doing what they've been called to do. And like I always say, it takes courage to walk in your calling. And on that day, she honored people that were walking in their calling. And I just always applaud her. I give her flowers every time I see her because to do that lets me know the type of woman that you are. And I hope that in every day of your life, you also feel honored in every way, every shape, every form. Y'all, this is Miss Aisha Ervin, okay? Also known as A. Wilson. She is the CEO and founder of Eline Media and Productions. She is also my sister because she has her own show called the A. Wilson Midday Show on 1010 AM The King. She has produced TV shows, reality shows, podcasts. She's produced a bunch of different things. She really is a force to be reckoned with. This is Miss Aisha Ervin.
Oh,
Welcome. Welcome to the Heart Helper Podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited about being here. Really, like I feel like I see this and I'm like, I'm on the set.
Yes, yes. I'm thankful to have you because I know you're a wealth of knowledge.
Oh, thank
I
you.
see you doing so much, not only for others, but like I love that you mentioned that you're a storyteller. And I see that all over you. Like you're literally someone can have an idea and you're like, okay, I'll bring it to life.
Up, that's me. That's
And
what I am.
that's a gift. That's a talent. That's a
Yeah.
talent. So what inspired you to launch Eline Media Production?
So I had a creative arts agency, which was a talent agency, and I had all these great women and guys that came in, and I listened beyond the story. So like
Yeah.
I'm looking, and I'm not just looking to be like, oh, what kind of? I'm looking, and I'm really trying to hear people when they speak to me, and every person that aspires to be a model or actress, a dancer, had a story behind it.
Mm,
And as I started to deal with different people, and I realized a lot of them lacked confidence. And the reason they lacked confidence is because something that happened, whether it was a childhood, whether it was they were dealing with the situation at the time. And I got more interested in their lives and their stories. And so for
mm.
years, for years, I'm like, I'm going to do a story about somebody. I'm going to do a story. I want to do,
You wanted to tell their story.
yes, I
Mm.
wanted to, and I'm like, and we got a group of ladies and we began doing something in regards to modeling. It was American Model Boot Camp. It wasn't really about the model, it was about what it takes to have the confidence to step outside of everything that's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm a teen mom.
Yeah.
I don't have the money, and to say I'm still gonna do it. And
Absolutely.
it just has so many great stories. We cried, we laughed during that project. And I don't think it was really even about that project opened doors for me, but I don't think it was really about that. It was more or less about letting people see the beauty in people.
Mm-hmm.
And years later, God spoke to me probably like, it's time to move completely in the film space.
And
And
out
I
of the
launched
modeling
it.
space.
Well, modeling after Instagram and Facebook came around, I couldn't even get girls. I could get girls $5,000 to host a gig, right? And they could be absolutely nobody, right?
Yeah.
Just because they were a beautiful girl or they had a resume. But when Facebook and Instagram came around, really Facebook and the whole people putting themselves out there, I don't think a lot of people knew that they cut their checks because then I
Mm.
couldn't get. They would offer me $350, and I'm like, I'm not giving a girl $350 to go stand up on her feet for 7-8 hours.
Yeah.
And so it really lost certain things. And I still kept doing classes for kids and things, but then God spoke to me one day and said it's time to completely move
And transition
and tell
into
stories.
film.
Yeah.
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 So with your transition into film, was that always a passion for you?
So acting is really my first love.
Okay.
So yeah. So I'm originally from upstate New York. Hey, shout out to Niagara Falls.
Woo woo! I'm from Canada. That's why.
Right across the bridge, girl.
Right across. That's why we connect. And
Exactly.
We
We were right up there.
Yeah.
And so I was into, I don't know if you remember the YMCAW when it was for women. They had the one for women. And my grandparents put me in all kind of classes. And so I really, really enjoyed it. But acting, I was like, they always said I was an actress.
You're an
like,
actress extraordinaire.
right. Like, I don't want to do the choreography. I'm going to make my own up, okay? And I loved it, but during that time as a kid, it was a lot of predators out there. So my aunt, shout out to my mom, San, she's passed on now. The reason I live in Atlanta, she put a lot into me. We done lots of auditions. I moved here because I had an opportunity here.
Really? So you were doing a lot of film at a young age. You were in the industry at a young age.
I was an actress and model, acting. I modeled for Kmart when I was like 7 upstate.
Wow.
And then I came to Atlanta because I came to visit my family, and we met a guy in the mall. He was like, "Oh my God,
she needs to model."
Right.
Yeah.
And so we had already heard that, and I was doing it for Kmart, but we thought, oh, it's Atlanta, and they were newly living here. We're like, okay, so let's move here.
Yeah.
I moved here. I was getting into trouble too up there with the older girls in modeling, so I moved here, and started to pursue that. And it was a lot harder. You would think a brown skinned girl. I was a brown skinned girl at that time. Darker skinned girls were really the ones like plunging through.
Really?
Yeah, I was very small back then. And I got a lot of local things. And when it's time to branch out, I remember we took a trip out to LA, and I was probably like 115 at the time. And the guy picked me out some pictures. But when we got out there, we sat in that boutique for hours, and he finally came out there and said, "Too fat. Too."
What?
That.
At 115, he said you were too fat.
And that does something to a kid, like, especially because on one side you're being told you're pretty, you're pretty, you're pretty, you're pretty, you're pretty. But when you start getting into that side where it is very diverse and you see where it's going, and you're like, okay, I'm so pretty over here, but over here you said I'm a little too heavy.
Yeah.
And over here, I'm not quite making it. I'm not dark enough, but I'm too light over here.
Yeah.
I'm not,
where do I fit in? Like, where's my space? Yeah.
But you always fit it into the adult industry. And that is what in Atlanta in that time frame in the 90s, what was really going on. It was the strip clubs were big.
Yeah.
Video vixen life was really big, and they were paying money on the spot for the night. Hey, can you come to the hotel? It's a party. I just need you to be in a party. Like we say, seat fillers. There was such thing as party fillers. And you
would just go.
Yeah, and that world was huge. And hey, you can get $500 just to sit and be pretty. Hey, we got a rapper coming in. Just jump in the car when we pick him at the airport. We just need you to be really friendly. Hey, $500.
So you got into that space from the modeling space. You transitioned into that.
And I did some movies, acting, extras. And again, it was like very hard. Even the agencies, they were, not being honest. My aunt paid so much money, and my grandparents, they would send money. I got to be Mr. Cater for
awesome.
I can't remember 1991 or 2. And I thought that was everything, just going to the door thinking I was going to take
that
off.
was your moment,
right? And each moment is met by, I think when kids get into that, and that's why I opened up my agency. You got to have people that are constantly pouring into you and letting you know, like, hey, there's other things. You can be a nurse, you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be because what happened is that it ruined my self-esteem a little bit. Although I love the industry, and that's why I want to make sure it stays in a good place. And I started to just really get out there a little bit. I
Yeah.
didn't. I didn't want to be with kids my age anymore because I was around older people.
So you wanted to hang out.
Yeah.
You were mature.
Yeah, I didn't want to go to school no more. I just it completely changed. This straight A student now wasn't interested in regular life anymore. So I became very fast, as we call it, very fast.
Listen, you were outside.
I was.
You was
I
outside.
was outside, girl.
During this time, like I know, you were younger, you were doing the modeling. What made you transition down that particular path of, I know you mentioned dropping out of school, getting into the adult industry as a teenager. What was that transition? Do you think it was like getting the rejection and getting a lot of no's that kind of made your self-esteem like, you know what? If I'm already on this track, let me just stay down the negative track.
It was more or less like everybody in what I call the regular world was like, "You're so pretty, girl. You're so pretty," and the guys, "Oh, you're so fine." Oh, you so. And I didn't at that time. I didn't know how to like really rate guys, like because internally, I don't know if I was even at an age where I liked guys. I was kind of like, okay, well, he got money, his shoes clean, or his, so like I didn't know, but
I liked the
attention, right? And I like the attention, and it's like, well, I'm supposed to get the attention on this side. I'm supposed to be modeling, acting. But the money and the attention is coming from the side that I'm more comfortable at.
Yeah.
And so when that was coming, I'm like, oh, I can make some money. And I was in school, and it was a guy who was becoming a rapper at the time, and he invited me out to Club Excess. Y'all in the ATL, if y'all remember Club Excess. And I wasn't old enough to be there, but
was that an adult club or
it was
it
an
like
adult club?
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
And he also was my age. We were both in the same grade, but he had got a fake ID. He was growing at the time as a rapper, and I had gotten a fake ID, and I was in there, and opportunities was coming out of that club. So opportunities for an adult world type thing, like, hey, you should strip over here. Oh, you should do this. And
Atlanta was known for their strip clubs. Atlanta was the Mecca, Magic City. I remember Onyx. Like Atlanta was known for their strip clubs.
Yep, that was really that was the life then.
Yeah.
And money was funneling into the city, and that's when Atlanta was really getting the grind of being known for different things. And so I was going back home to New York because I was like, oh, I'm just so over this, and I'm going back home with my mom. And I was in I don't know if you guys remember Blimpies. Do you have a couple of Blimpies?
The food place? Blimpies, I do remember, yes.
And I had on this cat suit that I shouldn't have had on.
Ooh.
I was a kid.
Yeah.
With some thigh-high boots, and this guy with a girl. I hadn't been exposed to I didn't know what lesbian was like at the time. And so a guy, this girl, and another older guy was like, hey, I got a job for you. And I was like, ew, this is dingy and this is not. I'm like, why? And he was like, I bet you can dance. I can dance.
Yeah.
I can dance.
Actually.
You should come out to this club. And me and my best friend went out. Somebody was like, oh, no. And my best friend was interested. She was like, I want to do it. I was like, no. So we sat there and just had a good time. And I thought I was leaving. And I met the manager. And he was retired police officer. Shout out to John from the old Foxy Lady. He was very professional. Did not know my age, though.
At this time, how old were you?
I was 14.
Get out! And you were working in the adult industry at 14.
I got hired when I was 14. I turned. I had a party at 15. Yes, but I was turning 21 there though.
Technically, her ID said she was 21.
My fake ID said I was 18 actually.
Thank you.
And I was every other month. I was a different age for whatever group.
Wow. So did you look more mature at this time, or you carried yourself more mature? I'm thinking why anyone did not, because when I see a 14-year-old, I think she looks 14.
I didn't probably look 14, but I definitely didn't look 18. And I think that's what, as I got older, what made me really want to work more against, don't get me wrong, nobody forced me. That was not a situation. But more in just working with young women.
Yeah.
Because I didn't look 18.
Yeah.
And nobody cared.
And that's where I was getting to, because I feel like a lot of times in the industry, a lot of young men, young ladies and young men get exploited. And it's like, you have a dream and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to model, I want to act. And someone sees you like, okay, well, you should come here, you should do this. And we see that a lot. Even that latest documentary on HBO Max about Nickelodeon. Yeah. This one young man was with his producer, his talent coach, and got, sexually assaulted, So there's a lot that happens.
And people know. And John was very professional, but don't get me mistaken. Then maybe I didn't know. He knew that they were underage. I think he thought by doing the right thing, by providing safety, because I think he was trying to get this club to be. I mean, he got me auditions for BET.
Wow.
He was, I was really, I came from a family that was very creative, so I really wanted all those things.
Yeah.
And he saw that, but the people around there, and at the same time, I can't prove he knew that was fake ID. But at the same time, we have to do a little bit more. And as I got a little older, I started realizing I knew within a few months that that wasn't my life.
Yeah.
Um, but I fell for that. And it was an exciting thing until I realized like I can't. I can't- I like to
This
dance.
is not my life.
Yeah, this is not my life.
Yeah.
And my dad had a history of things that I thank God for. You'd be surprised, like your parents' sins. You would think their sins can sometimes be just for your wake up call when it comes to your life. So things that
Yeah.
he had spoke to me about because of his life, like it was always in my head. And then even my aunt being saved, just all because I began to run away, and so I was just it was just always in my head, like, hey, you
What were
better
you
than this.
running away from?
Well, I had left living with my mother to come stay with my father's family when I came down. My father wasn't actually living with them yet, so I came to stay with them. My mama San, who I love. Um,
Shout out Mama
yeah,
Sam.
you're probably hearing them a whole lot. Or just over. She's Evangelist Sandy Collins, who a lot of people know here in Atlanta, and and so I was living there, and she always took care of everybody. So she had her own three children, and she had two in the home. They were a little older than me, and then she always took in other people's kids.
Wow. Had a
And
good
so
heart.
she is, yeah, definitely up there. I know, angel on ground. And so but it was difficult for me because although my mother was a single parent, my mother and father wasn't together. I was spoiled by my aunt who would send things, by my father's parents. So I was very spoiled, my mother's parents. And so being very spoiled, and then coming where you have to share.
You weren't used to
Yeah,
that.
yeah, where you are like the special child, and then feeling like my complexion of and I'm brown, as you see,
Hmm.
but my cousins were darker, feeling like I had a problem, feeling like at the time, like having long hair and feeling like I was the ugly one because
Really?
that was a sore spot for them. So it became, now I'm an issue. And so that became something I felt uncomfortable. A lot of different things. As I was a kid, I just felt like I wouldn't want it. I would not,
Yeah.
not by my aunts.
Was it from your cousins?
Yeah, it was from my cousin. We've spoken about it now that we're adults. But it was hard. It was really hard to feel like an outsider or something was wrong. And so that was a little bit of why rebellion came as well.
Yeah.
My father wasn't there, my mother wasn't there. My father eventually moved in, but at that point, damn,
You
at
was
that point,
already
I
gone
was
at
yeah, I
that
was already
point.
sneaking
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Do you feel like you were looking for like a home in other people? Like a place where you could be yourself, where you could be welcomed, where you could be loved, where you could be seen? Because I know a lot of times when people do run away or they don't feel like, you feel like the black sheep of your family,
Right.
you feel like your friends love you more than your family. Because I know I felt like that as a teenager. Like
Right.
my friends care about me more than my family.
I
Did
think
you
I
feel like
was. I
that?
was looking for my I thought I left home because I wanted to pursue acting, and I went every summer to stay with my aunt. No,
Hmm.
and I was getting a little rebellious, and so I didn't know a phone call occurred between my mother and my aunt, and so my cousin in an argument was like, "And that's why your mama don't even want you. She sent you down here now." And I was like, "What? I ain't never heard that." Now
My
that
mom never
particular
said that to
that,
me.
but I did know I was becoming a little bit of a handful for her,
Yeah.
and so I think I was, and my mother used to be harsh with words. My birth mother was my harsh with words sometimes, and so I did start feeling like I didn't fit in.
Yeah.
You would never think I carried that around with me probably from age 12 into just like in my 30s, to be honest. God, I'm telling my
Really?
age, Lord Jesus, I'm only 29.
Y'all, she's really 12. You see how good she looks. She's really 12.
That's what I'm thinking.
I got to check her ID because I don't know if it's real or not.
Right. And so I carried that around like never fitting in. That's really
Mhm.
where my call for other women
Came.
and men are, but mostly women, because I always feel like I never really. So Trey will tell you, I was really quiet, but never a follower really. So always an observer, even in those groups where you would think everybody's partying. I was always really quiet, but always observing. My father's family is a really go getter type family. So I was always looking for an opportunity. I was like,
Listen,
how
I'm going to
can I?
find it.
I'm gonna find it. But it was. I also was. I think I didn't know all the things I had been through. I was still very naive. So a
And you were
predator could see me.
young.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They could see she wants to be loved. She's gonna do anything to
Hmm.
prove, to show you that because she's craving. I think that attention I got initially as a kid that just shut off. Like, I'm special. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was craving that, and then, hey, I'm craving love, and I think predators could see that. And I'm not talking about just men, y'all, because there's female friends
Yeah.
could see like, oh, she'll do anything she want to be in. I'm saying, meanwhile, I'm thinking I'm like all independent. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
And you're thinking they're your friends. You think these people care about you whole time. They have different
Yeah,
intentions.
absolutely. And that led me on a really crazy road as a teen. But I will say, I thank God for growing up in church. I thank
Yes.
God for that Catholic school time at the elementary. I thank God for teachings my aunt, my grandparents, because um, I know for a fact that they were praying for me.
Absolutely.
And things that should have went another way,
Didn't.
never. So it's always like I was always
Mm.
there. I'm all like God always wanted me to see. I want you to see what can happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always some things have happened to me, but I always think, oh, could have been so much worse.
God
So
kept you. And I know you
yes,
come from a line of preachers,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So did you grow up in the church?
I did. I grew up. My father's family. My grandmother, my dad's mom. She was a minister ever since I know. She owned a church ever since I've known her. In Niagara Falls and Lockport, New York, and so she had this big, beautiful church. And so they, my both families, they chipped in to pay my tuition to go to Catholic school. So on a weekday, I went to Catholic school and learned about Mary. And then after that, on the weekends, I went over to my dad. So we had church the whole weekend. Okay, and
Oh, so you
so
were always at church. You
always
was doing
learning
the
about Jesus.
rosary at school,
Girl.
then listen, at church on the weekend.
And I had this little, my mother who was not into church. I had this little desk in my room. And I had every type of Bible, the Quran, the Daily Bread. I was very curious about the stories about God
Yeah.
because I heard so many different stories in school, and then I heard so many stories on the weekend. So I was very curious, and I collected anything about anything with religion.
Yeah. You're
And
trying to
yeah.
figure God out for yourself.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So I thank God, and my aunt was always so open to that, even though we came from holiness.
Yeah.
She was so very open to that.
She gave you the space, but I think that's what everyone needs. You need to figure out who God is for you. You need to,
Yes.
everyone could tell you about God. You could grow up in the church, be in the choir,
Yep.
but you could know of God. But it's really when you have that relationship with God,
That's it.
when it's that aha moment and
Yep.
your life could shift.
That's
I
it.
want to go back to you saying, like, God showed you how bad it could have got, and God still kept you from that.
Mm-hmm.
Could you kind of touch on that? Because there's
Mm-hmm.
someone listening, there's someone watching that might be in that space right now, and they might not think they could get out of it, but they can.
Yeah. So I had as a teenager just completely got into the realm of just like not going home, and
Where were you staying?
so I was staying. I met different people. I would stay at different houses, different friends, and then they would want me to go home. Some of their parents they knew me. When that became like an issue, and I started working in the club, I got a boyfriend that was a drug dealer, and we all were lying about our age at the time.
Yeah.
And so me, him, and his cousin had a place, and we was all lying. And one night, we just all told the truth, and we all were underage. Come to find out, his cousin was the one that was 18, and me and him, I was at that time 15, and he was 17. So we all ended
Wow.
up and we stayed together, but that wasn't a good situation because again, my vulnerability of doing well, you know,
I want to fit
and
in.
we were so close. I felt like before that age, we was like it was really, but in that situation with him, things began to happen that I was not used to. It was my first time being introduced to a form. Not I saw domestic abuse, but a form of abuse I didn't really understand, mental, and then different things that he experienced with other people. And I remember he had went away, and almost want to think to this day I kind of think it was a setup. And he had a lot of drugs in the house. Allegedly, he had a lot of drugs in the house. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
And I knew because he would have this guy who was a crackhead come to the back door and test different things that would come in. And that day I was off, and he had thought that I had did something with some money the day before, and so he was kind of mad. He was like, "I'm going to Florida, and I'm gonna be gone." So all his friends was coming over, but this guy who was crackhead, I hate to say crackhead nowadays, but crackhead, and he kept coming to the door, and I'm like, I was getting nervous. I was like, wait a minute, he might be trying to do something, and I was like, hey, so and so coming, the guys, his friends coming over here, don't come back. He was like, get out the house, and I kept saying, why? He was like, get out of the house, and I was wondering like, why is he telling me to get out the house? I was thinking he was gonna do something to me. And he just forced himself in the door and dragged me out the house. Literally, by the time it was a big house, by the time we got, it was out the back door to the corner where you could see like down the street in front of the house. They used to come, I think, Black Cat or Black Eyes, the DEA back then
Hmm.
was stormed. They raided the house. Underneath that house was so many guns I didn't even know.
Wow.
I
You didn't
probably would
even
have
know
been in
what was in
jail
the
for the rest
house.
of my whole life because I was there. It was drugs in the house. It was money in his house, and it was the guns that they brought out that we watched from the corner. I didn't even know.
Wow.
And he did. And you, I knew him to come
Mm.
test the drugs, but he told me his story that day. He said, "I got a daughter your age," and he said, "I was a school teacher for years." He said, this stuff got me so crazy, I just can't get right. And he said, but I knew that they were coming, and that's why the guys came over that morning and never came back, because they knew the house was
They
getting raided.
knew it was about to get raided.
So
Wow.
yeah, I
Wow.
saw. I was like, oh, this is, and through him, 2 weeks later, when I told him I'm still naive, he's like, well, go over so and so house. Went over a friend's house that another friend from my great life, my family knew, and he kept seeing me. He was like, you need to come back home. He knew these people too. I had danced for them, like actually danced in there when they were trying to become rappers, whatever. Like just dance for kid dance.
Yeah.
And so I trusted them. One was in college to be a lawyer. They always at the
You
time,
thought they were like a
good
safe
people.
space for you.
Yes, I brought a friend there, and she was gang right there, and they knew they almost got raided. I was standing over there, and they were like, they knew I was coming too, so I was supposed to be next, but something kept telling me to not go, and I kept
that spirit.
yeah, and I kept saying,
God was
well, she
keeping
there
you.
waiting for me. She there waiting for me, and so
she went to the house before you
yeah,
went to the
but
house.
they're my friends.
So, and she thought they were her
Yeah,
friends
and I was
too.
staying with them. I had just happened to leave that day, and they were having this get together, and they was like, "Hey, bring some friends." And my other girl was like, "You take us so long." I was like, "I'm always late and it taking a long time to get dressed," and I'm like, "I
Well, you
just
look
don't want
good.
to. I don't want to. I wasn't feeling like it." I'm like, "Let's just wait a little bit longer." And I almost blame myself, but that was what was waiting for us. And I said, God already knew that that was going to happen. Unfortunately, it happened to her, but it was like that hesitation I had when I was like, I don't feel like going. I don't know why. I don't feel like being bothered with them right now. And that hesitation, that was God keeping me. But I
Yeah.
felt like I had to see that in person. That and the 2 week incident where he sent me to this house made me feel like these people around here gonna kill you.
They're not your people.
Yeah, they're not my people.
But I love that you honored that like inkling that you had, that nudge you had, because I do feel like when sometimes it's like, no, turn right on this road, or don't go to this party, or don't go to this meeting. God's telling you, like, hey, that Holy Spirit is speaking to you, giving you divine direction to protect you.
Yeah.
But sometimes we don't listen to it. Yeah. Because just imagine if you wouldn't have listened to that nudge.
I know, and I know why I didn't want to go. She was like, girl, everybody gonna be there. And I was like, I'm tired of them. That's wait.
Some prayers from your grandparents. Those are literally prayers covering you and keeping you. I was reading a book, and he was saying like prayers don't have an expiration date. Our loved ones that have gone on, that were praying for our mothers, praying for us as children, prayers don't expire. So literally, you are someone's answered prayer. So that situation, that gave me chills.
My aunt always said I lived in a bubble. I didn't believe it until I got older. And like that situation, like things will happen when they say God won't give you more than what you can bear. I know that's true, because things that people may look at for me and say, "Oh my God, I can't believe that happened to you," and mentally you deal with things. But when I look at the flip side of other things, like if that would have happened to me, just the things I struggle with, I wouldn't have made it. God put on me exactly what He thought would be my and and so I really I believe now. For years I was in a bubble. I felt like I was drinking. Some people say you drink milk when you're starting to learn about God and get in for yourself.
Yeah.
And for years I think I was in that bubble where a lot of things were going on enough to shake me, but not break me. And I felt like there was lessons there. And I recently He took I'm out the bubble now, Lord. And I feel like, oh my God, I can feel it. You can feel it. You're like, God, you usually don't let me get all of that.
Yeah.
And so now I'm feeling where it's like, girl, you got to grow up. And I'm not talking about age, guys, not literally like in your 30s or 40s. I'm saying like in where God has protected you and giving you lesson after lesson, and you've been in places and you should have been doing what you should have been doing. And at this point, it's not like, okay, I've given you everything you need. You need to start acting on these things.
Yeah.
So I think for you, my aunt was so right. I think that He had me in a bubble of protection. In a
absolutely.
Bubble. And now
because so much could have happened. And we see stories where a lot has happened. And I hate to even talk about this, but even looking at the Diddy trial with Cassie, how young, how naive she was, and wanting to be loved, and all the things that we're reading about right now that has happened to her. You know, like a lot of times it's like you do want to be loved. Everyone wants to be loved, and the world will quote unquote give you love. But you know, I feel like it's only God that can really fill that hunger that we're all searching for. If you could look back now, like what advice would you, Aisha, 14-year-old Aisha, what advice would you give now to her?
To believe in yourself, to know those special things that people kept seeing in you.
Yeah.
It meant something.
Yeah.
And to follow that. I think we call it the popcorn, everybody microwave age right now.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone wants things fast.
We always wanted that.
Yeah.
Now we've been able to see it come to terms, so now it's different. They're like they demand it. But I
Mm-hmm.
think then I wanted to be famous so
Yeah.
fast. I wanted to be special. I wanted to stand out so quickly, and I didn't want to feel pain.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be, I felt discarded a little sometimes. And I think even now that's hard for people to understand. Well, why you felt like that? People look at materialistic things.
Mm-hmm. And then you're such a beautiful woman. So people are like, wow, how could she have low
I
self-esteem?
hate
She's
that.
so pretty.
That's why I love when you came to the show and you like. I think we do people so wrong when we look at them and think that you can tell a story. And I think that happened to me a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
Where people could not have any compassion for me because they thought, oh, I was pretty, and my aunt lived over here in this nice area, and so she don't have no story. She, not really knowing my story. And so I would tell, and I tell girls this, and if I can go back to like, believe in those signs, those things, that natural talent, that ability. The same way I was so loyal to getting up and making sure I was out there doing the wrong things, I could have got up and did the right things. Because when it was time to do the right things, I stood up and did it, and it's gonna come eventually.
Yeah.
What's for you is really for you. Because even in the midst, I look at my I went back and got, I dropped out of school, but I went back to YCA, which right now I have a contract with them because I always do something. I started volunteer, I always work for them. And I look back at my little figure book, me and the trusted man. I look back and I said, oh, I'm gonna be a model, I'm gonna be a lawyer, I'm gonna do all these things, right? And so God had a path for me. I went and got a criminal justice degree, and then I opened up a modeling agency. God knows where you should be and where your heart is. And so I feel like I checked off a lot of those things, just not fast. And it was meant for me to be the helping person, the person that assists, the person that understands. And sometimes you are a star. You're a star. You don't even know, chasing. Now, if you ask me, do I want to be on the limelight? I'm good with the checks. Okay.
Listen, I just want the checks. Y'all keep the light. Okay?
I'm good with seeing other people shine. Like
Absolutely.
I love porn. I love when I feel like there was something I assisted in, because you can't do anything for anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's them that they have the magic. But if you can assist in helping them find that magic,
storytelling.
That's it. That's the power.
Someone could tell you like, hey, this is what I want, you bring it to life. I want to go back to like you saying like people not really. I feel like people sometimes don't have compassion for people that they think are pretty, people that they think are rich, people that they think come from a certain neighborhood. So I could see people just looking at you like, she don't go through nothing. There's nothing that she could possibly tell me that could benefit my life. And that's why I think your story is so impactful. Even when you emailed me back and I was reading through it last night, I'm like, wow, she has really been through a lot of things. And just you being vulnerable in that, I hope people understand, like, every one of us goes through something. The pretty people also have pain and deserve compassion.
I said this thing, I've been every woman because so I grew up in life. People say, oh, she's so pretty, she's so pretty, she's so pretty, right? And then I grew up and I had a baby. And I got fat. Okay. I got like didn't even know you're young. You don't even know you fat because you're still trying to wear half shirts and stuff.
And
I didn't even know I
might still pop one out. I'm just saying, a little crop top.
And I started to feel the difference in how people treated me, because now I was a big girl and I was.
You weren't used to that.
I didn't even really recognize it, And then I'm like, oh, I'm a little bigger than I am, So I realized,
nobody say nothing. Y'all let me get this big. Wow, wow.
That was it. Like, and I started having like this thing. So I've always had like a little gap, which I thought was really cute.
Yeah.
But when I gained weight, it wasn't so cute no more. And I started really like, oh my God. I was married to my first husband at the time. And he started treating me a little different too. I was like.
After you had the baby?
I gained some weight. Yeah. And I was just like, and then, okay, I was able to lose that weight, but I felt the pressure of not being the pretty girl anymore, right?
And you weren't used to that.
I wasn't used to that.
Ooh.
So it gave me a different understanding. I love it though, because it made me realize, hey, you got to show your brains more.
Yeah.
You got to show your value more.
Because pretty's not always on the outside. Pretty is really a person's energy, a person's character. And like they say, like the fruit of the spirit. There's a lot of people preaching and, they're a great pastor or whatever, a great influencer, but you really could tell who people are from their fruit.
That's right.
When you're in their presence, how do they treat people? How do they treat the waiter? How do they treat the janitor? That's a pretty person. The surface is not like, you can't take credit for being pretty. God made your parents attractive or however we didn't have a part in physically being attractive. But when beauty steps in is if you're spiritually attractive.
And that's even almost a curse because when your inner matches your outer, you're not gonna make no friends.
Child, don't
It's
nobody
like,
like you now. Come on now.
You fake.
Speak on
Something
it.
ain't right
Listen,
about you.
She cannot be positive like that all the time. Something in the milk ain't clean.
I have been told I'm so fake, and I'm not even being fake. I'm like, this is my real personality. Like,
yeah,
but
people are not used to that because people are used to people being negative. People are used to people putting them down.
You're bougie.
Yeah,
you got to be bougie if you're pretty.
She's a diva.
Right. One thing.
Yeah.
Oh, you got So yeah. And I sensed that in you too when I met you. I'm like,
yeah, we see each other.
Yeah, and so I'm like, your spirit, your energy is so beautiful, but your outer is beautiful as well. And I feel like we stop our circles, we stop our blessings when we can't connect with people because of what we see. Even when you think somebody is below you because they don't look a certain way.
Yeah,
you know, when you think somebody's below you, then you miss your blessing.
Absolutely.
People talk about men and women relationships. So, oh my God, he's not your type or whatever. You miss your blessing when you don't allow people to really get to know people.
Absolutely.
You know, it is definitely not about looks, and it's definitely not about what somebody has. Because I definitely feel like, I talked about, I got a lot of things in the time when I should have got nothing.
Yeah.
In the time, my aunt talked about faith a lot, and I got a lot of things when I was fat with a 450, 500 credit score.
Yes.
I got a lot of things
because you said you got houses. You went for one. She went back to school, got her degrees.
Yes, look.
All of the above.
All in the space of, and I hate to say this, but it's kind of real. But like when you should feel your worst, your confidence comes up. So in that time of realizing I wasn't, you're not all that girl, and then not being treated right, and then not looking right, you learn how to really utilize. It's like how they say one sense is gone if you blind, the other sense enhances. That's what I felt like.
Yes,
it's like, oh, they think I'm not smart. Oh, because okay, well, I'm about to show them.
Don't worry about it. I'm sure.
Right, because I felt like for a while, I have 2 kids I birthed, but I have 3 kids. And during that time, I gained a lot of weight with my first son, but I was young. And I wasn't in ATO where it would have been acceptable, and then with my second son, I was small, doing pregnancy small, and then I gained weight. And I was ready for that train. I knew how to get back where I needed to get back.
You knew how to get your body back.
Right. But I was me already. So it's like, I'm the same. And people realize that, like, oh, she always is like this. That's who I am.
Yeah.
But I learned how to manage that, like, hey. And I feel like I was more comfortable. I hate to say, like, when people didn't expect so much. I feel like I was more comfortable. My power. I've learned to balance that now. But I was in a place where I didn't. So when I was considered the fat girl, not attractive, no looks, I felt like my Supergirl power worked because I was more bolder. I felt like I didn't have to watch what I said because maybe the pretty girls. I didn't feel like, I felt more comfortable in saying whatever I want to say.
That's so honest though, because I do feel like that. Like sometimes because people are always expecting me to be the kind girl, the pretty girl. So sometimes it's like, oh no, let me draw my eyebrow on. I don't want to look crazy. Or, really just there's only certain people that I really let my guard down and I can really be like the fullness of myself, because some people are like, let me draw my brow on, gel my edges down. And I love being around the people where I don't have to do that.
That's right.
And I love that you mentioned, like, in that space where you were, when you did get a little bigger, you could actually, still shine. Like you were able to be who you were still, despite what people were expecting.
Yeah. I hired a guy once because I went on that bandwagon up and down weight, and I it's been years, I keep saying it now. And so I lost weight, and so I had my media and production company. I hired this guy who was a manager for me, and he was a womanizer. I know he was, and he went through my film. He was just going through, just kind of trying to get to know more about the business. And so I didn't like the way he communicated with certain people, and it was time to let him go. I remember he said, "You know what? I saw you was fat." Like, I remember I looked at the picture. You think you all that. That's why you talk. I bet you back then when you was fat, you wasn't talking to nobody like this. You're not all of that. It's like, what you do? You go get some work or something? What you do? He was like, so, and I laughed. I was so ready for that ignorance at that point. I laughed. Because my photographer joked with me now, and he was like, I don't want to bring those pictures out. And I'm always like, it doesn't matter.
I'm still me.
I'm still me. And that's what everybody knows. Like, no matter what, I'm still me. And I think it's so funny that people hold you to what you look like on the outside.
Yeah, they do.
Like, people hold you, and now we laugh because nothing has ever changed from fat girl to and I remember I would give out my business card, and I remember this girl called in. They were like, hey, she don't know who gave her card. She said it was a fat pretty girl. It was a
and you're like, wait a second, they're talking about me. Am I the fat pretty girl? Well, at least they said I was pretty.
So that's why I said, well, somebody, I may not be feeling my best, but somebody, and that's what happens because, like what you said, your inside starts to really match. And the people that really get you, they don't see you any different because they always see the inside of you.
Absolutely.
And that's why I really recognize women. Like, I never fit into any group, it seems like, no matter how hard I used to try.
Yeah.
No matter, and I feel like I really came to a point where it's like, God don't want you to fit in with everybody.
Yeah, those are not your people.
And that's a small group of folk for me. And for me, I'm supposed to move around a little bit, I think. God wants me. So now I don't do clicks. I don't care how big the organization name is. If I get in that organization and it's clicky,
it's
I
not
can't
for
do
you.
It's not, no, I don't care what name, what I'm gonna get. Ooh, this name is gonna get me into this. Because that's when I move back home to Atlanta. Atlanta's become a little cliquish. And so
Atlanta is cliquish. Atlanta is surface level. Everyone worries about what you look like. Atlanta is not a real place sometimes. There's a lot of great opportunity, but it is a surface level space.
You will walk into the room, you're so accomplished, and the men in the room will think you're not smart.
Yeah.
Don't take you serious. You have all these accomplishments. Shout out to one of the guys that I was working with for years. He retired. Anthony's a little older than me, and I would have to literally bring him. Shout out to Anthony, bring him with me places so that sometimes men would take me, and that would happen where I had talked to him several times in business, but then Anthony would meet them, and that legitimized me. Oh, I know you had all that going over. Yeah, I told you the first and second time I met you that this is what we were doing, which makes me have to be more stern. Why do I have to be this bitch that people think that we should be when that's not my personality?
Yeah.
But I can't get you to have this meeting, and I'm offering you something, but you looking on the outside thinking I'm easy, I'm this, I'm that. So then when I tell you I'm not, now you got an attitude.
Yeah.
And now the ladies in the group think something about me, and all I did
because you're standing up for yourself.
Yeah, and it's so crazy. It's just not. It's just so much there. I think we all hurt. I think that whether you were taught that you were not pretty, or whether you were taught that you were too dark or too light, whether you were taught you were too big or too small, we're all struggling looking for something. Nobody's happy. I'm not happy skinny. I'm not happy big. I'm not happy pretty. I'm not happy ugly. I'm not happy.
I'm not happy rich. I'm not happy poor.
So you have to find a place where you're happy at.
Absolutely.
And be comfortable.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why, it's important for me, like, to recognize. I love to recognize, because people are doing huge things out here, but you don't even know it unless they fit into your box, especially in Atlanta. Unless they fit into this clique, you'll never know you were sitting next to your blessing. So I really love to introduce women, and even women that are known. Like, we had Honeymoon there.
Yes.
She's very known.
Oh, she's awesome.
Very known. Her spirit is what to me is like so beautiful.
Spirit and energy is on like 10,000. Her energy like precedes her. Like when she walks in the room, she doesn't even have to say a word. Her energy is so big.
And it's so real.
Ooh, it is. You can feel it.
Yeah.
She's a gem.
Yeah. So I don't care if everybody in the whole world knows her. I want to be appreciative.
Absolutely.
And so I think if we can take the time to recognize each other and not be so like always
judgmental.
I tell a woman she's pretty any day of the week.
Love to do it. I'll stop you. Ma'am. I was at the airport the other day and this lady was walking. She was bad. I don't know if she was picking up a man. Her husband was coming in town. I was rolling by. I was like, ma'am, I just want to let you know you're so pretty, girl. Yes. And she just started laughing, but honor people. And I feel like people that do that, like similar to you, like that day of a lady when you honored women, I feel like people that do that honor themselves.
Yeah, that came. The first day of Lady we didn't have any money. Everything was donated, and it was just. I was like, everybody's doing brunches and stuff, and I just want to do something for the ladies. And I just had this dream, and the dream has not came forth yet, but I know God is working on it.
It's coming.
And so I was like, I want to do something, and we did it. And my husband was like, well, you got other stuff going on. How you gonna do this? And he ended up getting a lot of donations for us. It was really nice. That's how I knew God won. Every year, let me tell you, it's always something. God makes it work. And I know the day of a lady is from God. I know it because it don't matter what is going on. It's getting done. It was such a beautiful event. Like, I still stay in contact with some of the women that I was sitting at the table with. But like the way that you honored women, I was just so taken aback. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, just to feel seen, to feel appreciated, because sometimes it could be discouraging. Like me and Doja were talking about on a previous episode, it's like, you don't know how close you are to whatever your dream is, but sometimes it's like, gosh, I want to give up. You don't think you're seeing the results that you want to see. I want to stop doing it, but you never know how close you are, and what you want wants you.
but we have to keep each other encouraged because I do feel like we all have that flame that God's given us. But sometimes my flame goes out, being honest.
Yes.
I'd be tired,
Yeah.
but that day I was like, okay, she relit that flame in me. And just allowing yourself to be selfless in serving others, I feel like I always tell you that. That's like such a big thing for me.
Do you recognize that? And you have to be so careful. And I won't just beat up on Atlanta. I live in Atlanta, metropolitan cities. I'll say
Yeah.
bigger cities because people do things just for attention to get into
Mm-hmm.
circles. And I remember somebody said to me, "Why you doing that? Why are you doing this? What's the thing?" And I'm like, "What you talking about?"
What's
I'm
your
like, "Yeah,
intention?
like," and I'm like, she was like, "So what do you have to do to get into so and so?" And I'm like, an organization I was
Mm-hmm.
already in, and I'm like, I've never even honored one of those people, women yet. And I think that you do have to be careful because people use things as stepping stools, and they use things um, and really, I really look at people. People will say, "Hey, you should honor this person." Like I met you at the mixer,
Mm-hmm.
and I could tell it was an energy. You said some information that I've met so many people. People won't even say that it was something. I don't know if I was saying on shows, but just
Yeah.
you gave some information. I'm just like, for her to give that information so freely, she cares about her folk. Okay,
Oh,
and I
absolutely.
was
I
like,
love
and
my
she
people.
didn't have to say that
Yeah.
information freely. And so and that was a thing for me. And sometimes God just show you like this person is, you could have easily thought you and Vinay perfect in the room,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And it were new additions. And I felt like God was trying to tell me something even with you two being in the room because it was like these are people we want to help other people. Sometimes
Absolutely.
people no, and it's no shade. If I give an award, I give it because I want to, but I do want more women to come and plug holes in the room, like
Mm-hmm.
to talk to people like Tressa, like I love that because that's the goal, like to pass it around. It's like it's
Absolutely.
contagious, pay it forward. If I got a little something, it may just be a word. I can pass it. If I got 2 minutes out of every week, I can give it to you, sis, because you
Yeah.
need it. And
Absolutely.
so I love that there was two newer women in the room, and some of my older women didn't come. And God said to me, "That's what it's supposed to be." Because sometimes people get to where they need to be at, and they don't need certain things.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't understand what they're getting.
Yeah.
And so I do feel in it. And what I found out about this day ability, I'm like, maybe I'm getting to that vision, God. I'm getting because I need the room to move. I don't need people to come just waiting for a free bag. We didn't give those
No,
bags like last year. It didn't work out, but it was still beautiful.
it really
Because usually I want
was.
to give so much. And Tamika call me and say, "Girl, you be giving too much stuff."
Yeah.
And this year we didn't even get all of our stuff in. I'm like, and it still worked out
It was
because
still
people
a
was there.
beautiful
Yeah.
event. It
Yeah.
really was. And just being there and being in, like they say, iron sharpens iron. So I feel like everyone's energy was really aligned. Like
Yes.
everyone wanted to help, everyone was loving,
Yes.
everyone was vulnerable. And that's very hard to be. Like some of the women, when they got up there and they shared their stories, whether it was from being in a abusive relationship, whether it was like struggling in business, or everyone shared their story. And through that vulnerability, I felt like my flame was like relit. I'm like,
That's
okay,
the
like,
goal.
and we have to be more comfortable in sharing our story and sharing our truth. Because even when I read what you had wrote back to me, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that she went through all of that. So even you taking the time to be here today, it's just like you see that. And I know if I go through something similar, I can make it through that. And a lot of times, if we're so like bent on not sharing our stories, then who gets healed?
Well, that just happened 2024. I shared my full story at an event and I was really afraid. And I got a little pushback from some people in my family. Like, why would you say that? Why
Did
would
they
you?
not want you to tell your truth, like about the dancing, about
That and then, you know, sharing family. Like, why would you say that? Why would you? And I shared a little bit about my father's history.
Mhm.
He became a preacher, but everybody has a history.
Everyone has a
And
story.
yeah, it's like, and so that those things all the years nobody knew anything about. I remember a lady telling me when I was volunteering, "I didn't know you went to domestic abuse." She just thought I was volunteer. I
Can we
wasn't
talk
ready
about
to talk
that?
about that
Yeah.
yet. 2024, God said, "Girl, you keep asking me to do stuff for you. I'm doing it, and you're not doing what I'm asking you to do."
Yeah. You're not being obedient.
Right? No.
And I always say the only way to be abundant, because we all want to be abundant,
Hmm.
let's be clear, not just financially, but I want to be abundant mentally,
Yes.
spiritually. But the only way to be abundant is to be obedient.
Yeah.
And you have to, none of the things that we go through are by coincidence. So, can you talk a little bit on your domestic violence situation?